Assalamu alaikum and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to this class to take you through Module 3 titled Sources of Funds for New and Entrepreneurial Ventures. As you are aware that money is very important in human life, so it is important to business life. In business, you need money to start business, and you need money to operate a business, and you need money to grow a business. Fundamentally, money is very important when it comes to business, either entrepreneurial business or any type of business. It is with money you start the business, you buy machinery, you open store, you pay rent, you pay salaries. It is money with money you buy resources like raw materials, fueling and maintenance of your machines in the company. For example, if you are into manufacturing, it is with money that you pay your registration in school fees and what you buy clothes. You do. So money is very, very important in human life, and so it is to business life. So in this module, we'll be discussing about the sources of funds, types of sources of funds. What are they? What will somebody get if he's looking for money? Which one is cheaper? What are opportunities provided by government as other means of getting funds for smaller businesses and entrepreneurial ventures? Or what are the structures or the requirement for angel financial or angel investors, crowdfunding, and the rest of it? In this module, we're going to discuss all of this, and we're going to see some of the advantages and some of the government programs and banks, government banks and commercial banks that are providing softer loan for smaller businesses. In this module, we'll be discussing about cheaper sources of fund, which has to do with somebody's personal savings. So businesses, whether small or large, requires funds for the acquisition of fixed assets, buying inventories, payment of salaries or rent, and general undertakings of the business. An entrepreneur needs to answer these questions clearly, as they will guide him in making decisions concerning funding. So businesses, whether small or large, whether you are in small business, whether you have 1 million capital, whether you have 100,000 capital, you require funds to operate and keep the business alive. And sometimes you require funds to buy fixed assets, like buying fixed assets like machine generators and other machines that we require for the production of the products or conducting or delivering the services you're offering. So buying inventories like raw materials and the payment of salary or rent and general undertakings of the business. It is with money that all those things are done. So funds are very important. An entrepreneur needs to answer the certain questions. And sometimes people just venture into collecting money or just go ahead to borrow money from banks simply because government say or bank says that you can come and borrow money from us. So and without understanding and asking why you need to ask certain questions and to know why do you really need the fund. It is very important to know why you are looking for the fund in order to acquire new machines or to expand your business or to buy some essential or fixed asset that will push the company forward. And sometimes people want to borrow money just to buy cars, and which does not add any value to the business, and then and at the end of the day you might find the business bankrupting, as in a bank taking over the business or selling it off and copying is credit facility. So why do we need funds? It's very important for somebody to answer these questions. Very important. Why do you need the money? Is it for what? Is it for buying machinery? Is it for expanding production? Is it for starting up? Is it for leasing? Is it for rent? Is it for whatever you need? And then the second question is, how much do you need? You need to know how much do you need. Sometimes people don't need much money, but then they will go and borrow huge amount of money, which is actually beyond what they really required. And what happened? The excess will go for wastage, and they just venture into spending unnecessarily and buying things that they never need in the business. So when do you need the money? When exactly do you need the money? Today, next tomorrow, next month, next year? You have to understand. You have to answer these questions in your mind. How long will you need the money? And that's talking about the tenure. If they are given, for example, you've gone to Jai's bank to borrow money, how long would you need the money? As in, how long, for how many years would you need their money? And then you need to understand the question. And why can I obtain it? These is very important questions. You need to know where to go and get this loan, either from a friend, either from family, either from Islamic bank and other conventional bank. All this is very important. Very important. It's very important question to understand. And the most difficult question among all of them is, how can you repay? And in this type of situation, you need to define the strategy and how you repay, because most of people borrow money and they can't pay. We're seeing it. It's happening. If you are not, it has not happened to you, it has happened to someone, or your friend, your family members, or somebody close to you. So this is the most difficult question. How can I repay? How can you repay the money? Most often than not, people who borrow money from you, for example, a friend borrow money from you, he become your in-law. Unfortunately, you'll be dodging anytime you meeting him on the highway, on the road. You'll be dodging, changing gate, and finding means of hiding because he cannot repay. Same thing. People are collecting government loans, thinking that it's an achievable. It's not going to be possible. Government will follow you, and government of today is not as the government of yesterday, because the world has changed. And therefore, if you want to borrow or you want to get money from either family and any source, you must be able to answer these questions. How can you repay the money? And you might find somebody borrowing money, 10 million naira. And the first thing he will do, he will go and buy 5 million naira car, worth of car, 5 million naira. So how can 5 million now repay 10 million? It requires greater energy, greater and extra and superficial effort to transform, 5 million naira or no liquid into 10 million naira at the end of the day, or at the end of the tenure of the repayment. So types of sources of fund. We have internal source and we have external source. We have formal and we have informal source. So internal source is the term for a firm using its profit as a source of capital for new investment rather than distributing them to firms, owners, or other investors. In this case, internal source means source of funds is where you keep back profit, you share some part of it, and you keep it. Savings and part of it, all these are internal sources of loan. What about external sources? Funds that firms obtain from outside. That outside could be a bank, that outside could be from family and friends, that outside could be somebody external. There's no part of the business, it's not part of anything, external sources. What about formal? Formal has to do with going to a formal bank, formalizing, filling all document and signature, signing an agreement, and the rest of it. What about informal sources? Informal sources has to do with the family and friends, where you don't need to write any formal and there is no time for repayment. It's just that, borrow me this money, I want to buy this sort of machines, and if he has the money, he's going to borrow you. So this is informal. So sources of fund, where personal savings. We put them based on hierarchy. We put personal savings first because it's the cheapest source of funds. It's cheaper because everybody, if you save your money, it's easy to use your money to invest or to do business, because nobody will ask you to repay. Nobody will become your in-law. For instance, like the example I gave earlier, you just work free, you do your business. If it work, fine. If it didn't work, it's your money. So personal saving is is the cheapest source of fund for business, startup or expansion. And then the next one is borrowing from friends and relations, family and friends. When you borrow from family and friends, should anything happen to the business, you might find the business, you can just talk to them, plead with them, beg them, so that you can pay them in installmental or extend the time of payment. And one most important thing, you don't pay any interest in it. You don't pay any interest. So the third one is trade credit. Trade credit is another source of funding, because what is trade credit? Trade credit is that you buy Most of us are doing it. Maybe we are not aware whether it's trade credit or not. For instance, now you go to a bigger shop, you go to Quarry Market, and you have somebody who is dealing in fabrics, and now you say you want to be buying and selling, and you collected say 20 or 100 pieces without paying no money, without paying any money. So when you don't pay money until when you make a sale, that you now pay back, that is trade credit. You collect those things on credit, not on credit per se, on the condition that you sell. So when you don't sell, you can return them back to the original owner. The original owner takes the risk. That is trade credit. It's another cheaper source of funding. What about the third one? The fourth one is accrual accounts. Accrual are those expenditure that you ought to have paid. For example, in your business, you are running a business and you ought to pay NEPA bill every month. You ought to pay water bill. You have to pay government tax every month, and those taxes and those bills that you didn't pay. For example, you're supposed to pay in February, March, and you accumulate them instead of paying January, February, March, and you choose to pay in April. So those savings, since you agree that you'll be saving those exact amount for that period, and then those are accruals. You're going to use this money to invest in your business. Another source of funding. No interest, no charge, nobody's going to ask you when will you pay, or it is your money that you owe to pay bills, and now you want to invest it prior to the time when the time will be due, so that you take back that money and pay those bills. What about the third one? The fifth one is return earning. Return earning are those profits that you make and you save some part of it. It's return earning. It's another cheaper source. You don't borrow from anybody. Nobody will ask you to repay. Nobody will become your illo. And equity financing is another very important one. Although in terms of equity, you are calling your friends to say, okay, borrow this, bring part of and put your money as an investment. Once you put that your money, I'm going to give you share of the ownership of this company, and it means you are going to share liability and profit. So when you make profit, you are going to share with that friend who borrows you money, or that family member who put money into your business. This time is not borrowing. No repayment period. No repayment period in this case, because it's equity. Equity is an investment that allows people to put their money into your business, where that after any profit will be shared with them based on the proportion you agree. The next one is bank loan. Bank loan is you go to a bank and borrow money. And when you borrow the money, you do your business, you have to be paying the bank. And bank repayment have their conditions. So when you are collecting the loan, you fill some forms, and this is formal. They will ask you to fill a form, bring guarantor, present collateral, and any other thing. And then a bank doesn't care whether you make profit or not. You have to repay. Not like in equity. Equity, you share the profit and loss. For bank loan, you have to repay the sum and with interest. Alhamdulillah, now we have Islamic bank in the country, or banks that are operating Islamic windows, where you can borrow money, and the bank will borrow the money, and mostly is used for buying asset and other investment facilities. So those Islamic bank, you share profit and loss with them, and so it's cheaper than the conventional banks like First Bank and the rest of them. You can go to, for example, say Jais, Stanbic IBTC, and some of them that have this window of Islamic financing. So project financing, and project financing has to do with a particular project. For example, you want to open a project. You want to open another shop or branch of your company, and then you look, you want to buy a particular machine, and that by buying that particular machine, it will require some money, and then you seek for money to buy that machine alone. Project financing. So sometimes the money comes from, you borrow from bank, you borrow from friends, and just to finance that project, particular project. And then venture capital. Venture capital is that money, is money belonging to some people called venture capitalists. They have the money, they have a huge sum of money looking for people with promising businesses that they can invest. You should be aware that venture capitalists, they are promoting small business growth. They will help you to move you to the next level of business. After some time, they will recoup their capital with profit. So venture capitalists, they're looking for businesses that have potentials of making profit. So the reward for venture capital is what profit would they get between the said period they are putting their money. So you agree on a particular period that they're going to put your money. After 1 year or after 6 months, they will take away their money. So you'll be sharing money profit with them. In this case, equity is partial. So they'll be part of the control. They'll be watching from behind the scene and to see how you're performing in your business. And debt financing. Debt financing is another form of financing where all the invoices in your book, you present it to a finance house, a bank, or somebody to say, okay, this is the debt I have, which is going to be due in so debt. Borrow me money. Keep all the documents so that you recoup the debt, and I'll give you discount. For example, somebody bought some things from you on credit, and now you need some money now. You can take the money, the documents, and present to the bank, for example, or any finance house, and tell them, okay, take this debt, go and recover them, and give me money now, recover them, and remove some percentage. So in this case, interest comes in, and for us Muslims, interest is forbidden in Islam, but then others who are not Muslims, they can borrow and use from the bank. So commercial draft, it may be a site or a time draft. It's another commercial draft is a document that the bank accepts to pay on behalf of their customers, especially when it comes to importing and from abroad, and when everything is arranged. So bankers' acceptance, bill discounting, commercial paper, bank overdraft, inventory financing. Bank overdraft is a common one that we know, that when you have salary with the bank, or you have a strong and liquid account that always operational, bank can grant you an overdraft. It doesn't exceed certain limit you have in your account. If you are a salary earner, they say 50% of your salary can be granted as overdraft, and it's mostly for short time, and it's 1 month, 2 months, and then you pay them. Inventory financing, when you are buying new stock, you can seek for funds to finance. And borrowing from cooperative societies is another very important one, and some businesses, they have cooperative societies, and they are there to help their members in providing funding for their operation. The next one is hire purchase. Hire purchase is very important, and we are seeing it happening on Adidas, how all those that are cycled, they are operating. And hire purchase, somebody will buy a machine for you and agree that you be balancing so amount daily. When you repay the sum, the original sum and profit, say within 6 months, if you are able to repay within 6 months, then the machine becomes yours. That is the hire purchase. Mostly is done on those machines that have depreciation value, and therefore they apply only basically on machines, and you're using it for operating and balancing them. And at the end of the day, the ownership is transferred to the person that is bringing the balance. So it will cease to be in the ownership of the person that purchased that particular machine, and then there's transfer of ownership from the buyer to the hiree. Yeah. So leasing is another way of funding, because it's also applicable to machineries or properties, where people can rent and they be paying and they be giving balance continuously. You'll be taking the gain from it, but then you'll be giving balance. In this case, there's no transfer of ownership, and the wear and tear is the burden is based on the buyer. So factoring and microfinance banks. And today we have nicer microfinance bank, and so many of them that could come at a lower level and borrow some money at cheaper rate. So public offering is to go public and ordinary share. You offer a share, for example, Dangote flour mills. That time they are coming for public offer. People. So the concept of venture capital. Venture capitalists are firms or wealthy individuals who desire to back entrepreneurs' project financially on an ad hoc basis. Ad hoc is mean temporary. Temporary is not permanent. They are buying equity into the company that is promising, and the temporary is not permanent. So for after some period of time, they will opt out. So venture capital funds may be described as pool of capital constituted for investing in relatively high risk opportunities. They provide long-term committed share capital to help up-quoted companies grow and succeed. So financial stages in venture capital. Seed money. Venture capitals could grant you seed money. They could give you start-up capital, first round, second round, and third round, and fourth round. So this, the seed money, this is a low-level financing needed to prove a new idea, often provided by an angel investors. So when you promise, when you pitch and you show that your idea is promising, they can give you seed money, where you are not in the business this time and they're going to give you the startup capital. Simply because you convince them your business plan shows that the business is promising, and therefore they will be willing to grant you seed money. So startup deals with firms that are in their early stage that need funding for expenses associated with marketing and product development. Startup are those businesses that have started. Just for example, you started last month. So the first round covers early sales and manufacturing firms. Those companies that have started and they've started selling and they've taken their product into the market, and this type of company they access venture capital. So the second round, it includes funds that are used for finance. So in conclusion, as an entrepreneur, do not allow your growth potential to be hampered by lack of funds. You don't wait and you don't complain and you say, I cannot expand my business simply because I don't have funds. All these options that we've deliberated and discussed in this module has exposed, I'm sure I must have exposed some of you to what that means of funding. There's free credit. I've not mentioned one, Adashi monthly contribution among people who agreed. Each people will take at its mental period, even though it's not in the model, but it's a very good example of where people will source for cheaper funds to operate their businesses. I opened my first shop with Adashi. Adashi is an agreement. In Igbo they call it Esu, in Yoruba they call it something I can remember, in Hausa they call it Adashi, where a group of people agreed to contribute some amount of money that by instrumental month and weekly, that every cycle somebody will take the whole of the contribution, and it will go around until the last person is settled. So it's very useful. So avail yourself of any of the sources discussed in this document to grow your business to the next level. So do not wait. I added the Adashi as a bonus, because it's not contained in the module, in the module, but then it's important to share. So you can explore that as the last option, or the immediate after personal savings, family and friends. You can decide to go for Adashi. So it's a mutual agreement among people, say 5-10 people to collect monthly, and that type of money I utilized it, I think 2013, to open my first shop in Kano here. So we agree among some of us, and we raise 50,000 every month, and each cycle total sum 600,000. So 600,000 among 12 people is a good sum at that time to start a small business, and that was how I started my business. Up till today, we are still doing that. Actually, it's very interesting. So thank you for listening, and do have a pleasant time.